Hey all, this is Terry, and this is Forest County Outback, Episode 1, Kellettville, Part 1. We'll be coming back to Kellettville at a later date. So if you have watched my videos when I posted them on Facebook, you'll know Kellettville was the very first video I did in March of 2020. So when I was getting these ready for YouTube, I was not happy with the original video, actually the first 3 videos in a series, so I decided to reshoot them, and I actually reshot this in January of 2022. So don't panic if you see ice. It doesn't mean we're having an early winter. It just means I shot this several months ago and have been lax about getting YouTube up and running. So with that, let's get to it. This is a photo I have of Kellettville, taken in August 1st, 1905. I apologize for the glare of the light. If you've been in Cougar Bob's, you've probably seen this, but the one they have is pretty kind of dingy and hard to see. So anyhow, this is the original bridge. The current bridge is right about here, and if we go downstream, this area in here is now the campground, and this building right here was the company store that was the Salmon Creek Mercantile, and then the depot next to it. Then this 3-story building, I mentioned this in the video, and I said I thought it was a Lath Factory. I've since found out they had a hub factory here also, so that was probably the hub factory. And there's a lot of little neat details in this, like this kid here in a tree. But anyhow, this area in here is all now part of the campground. And these buildings on this side of the creek, there's just foundations remaining. This would have been the Kingsley house. It was a 3-story hotel. They had a fatal fire there at one point. It burned down. It was a young lady who later died of her injuries from that. Now going upstream, this is Tannery Hill. It was a leather tannery here. And in this area here, there's old foundations from these buildings, but that's private property. We can't film up there. And these long buildings are actually right here. These are actually bark piles. They use hemlock bark to make a tanning solution, and that's how they stacked them to dry, stacked the bark to dry. And of course, all these buildings along here, this is like going up towards Cougar Bob's. Those buildings are all gone. And pretty amazing to look at it. Up here on Tannery Hill, there's a couple of original houses up there that are now camps. But everything else in this picture is long gone. So today we are looking at the town of Kellettville, and it's hard to believe that at one time there were about 1,200 people who lived here. And that road up there, that was one of the main streets in town, and there were houses all and stores all along there. You'll see from the photos what was there. There was over in that direction, there was a 3-story hotel called the Kingsley House. And there's been a bridge in this area for all going back until before the 1900, and this island hasn't really changed a lot. But at its peak, like I said, there were about 1,200 people who lived here. There were 2 sawmills, railroad shops, kindling wood factory, a lath factory, tannery, which actually the tannery was up over there, and there's remains of it, but it's on private property. But I'll point it out in the photos. But it's private property, so we're not going up there. But over here in the campground, that was Church Street going down through there, and that was all built up. There were houses down through there, and over in that direction was the Sheffield and Tynesta came up through there, and there was a depot and Salmon Creek Mercantile Store over there. The history of Kellettville goes back to about 1880, and the first reference I can find for it was a sawmill in the 1820s built by the May brothers, and it was a water-powered mill, and it was on up that way at the mouth of Little Minister. And I've looked for signs of it, but you know, that was 200 years ago, and that area did become part of the town, the bigger town site here, so there was nothing. I could never find any sign of it up there. And then when things started to develop was about 1878 with the Salmon Creek Lumber Company, and then in 1880 a guy named W.W. Kelley from Boston built a extract plant here. They were processing hemlock bark. They used an extract from it in the tanning process, and that ran a few years. Then it closed. Then there was then the tannery was built up there, and things really took off around 1900 when Teddy Collins moved into the area, and 1900 to, well, really from 1905 when he built the new sawmill, which we're going to go look at that site, up till 1924 the mills closed down. They had sawn the last of the virgin timber. So let's go look around, and there's remains of a lot of stuff here. So let's go look around at it. Now this hole right here, this was the site of the Salmon Creek Mercantile Store. And we're talking, you know, 1890s up until the town kind of folded up in the mid-20s. And then the S&T grade was right over this way. So this was the old S&T grade. There was the Mercantile Store, and then the depot is over in this area here. And then there was a little siding over, there there. So you can see all this stuff when I get to the photos. Pretty interesting. It's, you know, look at the photos and then see what it looks like now. We've got some cut stone there. Actually, this would be the area where the depot was, because this was the Mercantile, and the depot was right next to it, so it would be over in, would have been right in here. Okay, trust me, things get a lot more interesting here than just a hole in the ground and a few stones. It's the remains of some kind of building, old stone piers. And then over there is the S&T railroad grade heading down the creek. And then up this way, that's heading up Salmon Creek. And there are a bunch of railroad sidings up through there. The mills were up that way in this area. Used to be all open, and there was lumber stacked all through here. And sidings and that. So we'll check that out in a bit. Okay, so there's I believe that's the main line for the S&T. Or maybe not. No, that's a siding. The main line is further over. This is a siding going up, heading up Salmon Creek towards the mills. Now the S&T, the main shop was in Nebraska, but the lumber company had shops up here for the logging railroads. Yeah, that's the siding heading up Salmon Creek. This was the main line over here. So we're gonna walk down there, walk down to the intersection of Salmon Creek. Okay, so that's looking back up the main line towards the depot and the store. And then over in this area, and this is part of the campground over here, but I think, pretty sure it was right in this area here, there was a large building, looked to be about 3 stories tall, and I believe it was the Lath Factory. And I'll show you that on the photo. And I have looked over there for any sign of it in the past. I have not found anything. And then this is the grade headed towards Salmon Creek and then on down Tionesta to town in Nebraska. Salmon Creek coming down. See, things are starting to freeze up here. It's been cold, been down in single digits, close to 0. And beautiful day today. It's still cold, but we're supposed to get about a foot of snow overnight. So things are going to be changing here pretty quick. So, okay, this is the old bridge over, railroad bridge S&T over Salmon Creek here. And this was, this would have been built, probably around 1902, 1905, something like that. So the boom towns in Kellettville really didn't last all that long. I have not seen any photos of this bridge, but I was told, or I read somewhere, that it also functioned as a bracket dam, that there was a plank wall between these piers, backed water up. And there's another pier out there in the water that's fallen over. Anyhow, that's the grade going down to Kellettville, or not, I mean Nebraska. And that up there is Stony Point, that hill in the background. And Tionesta Creek down that way. The original Salmon Creek sawmill was up that way about a half mile, and they used to bring the lumber down to down here to Tionesta Creek by teams, and then put it into rafts, because that was way before the railroads. And because of isolation, the whole operation was always kind of on the edge financially. And Collins bought them out in the late 1890s, and he had money to upgrade equipment, and he brought the railroad through and basically made the thing profitable, because he had the money to invest in it. I remember back in the day, this would have all been open. Would have been all these trees here. So let's go look at the sawmill. Okay, so that's one of the sidings. That's actually coming from Upstream, Kellettville, or yeah, from the center of town. It comes through here. There's just a network of sidings and stuff through here, and there's just all kind of little things around here. There was some kind of little structure here, and there's pieces of coal scattered through here, and there's some piles of ash, you know, like when they shoveled out the fireboxes for the locomotives. So there's all kind of interesting little stuff through here. Okay, this is the intersection with the branch here. That's Salmon Creek. This is the branch. The original Salmon Creek mill was up there, up that ways, and that will be the subject of a future video. This is the branch, and we're going to follow this up to the site of what was the new mill and check out the remains there. That's pretty neat. A few more cold nights here, and this will really be froze up. All right, so we come across all these concrete piers, and we're all through here. And what these were, that supported wooden loading docks. And you see here, there's a railroad siding coming up through here, and you had the docks on either side. Now back then, you know, they didn't have forklifts for that, so everything had to be done by hand. And right up there, you'll see some walls, and those were the dry kilns. So they would wheel them out of the dry kilns down these docks and then load them by hand onto flat cars, or, you know, a lot of times even box cars. You see what a large area these loading docks covered. And there was a siding there, and then there was one over here. And then there is the old dry kiln. So the new mill was built, it was further up there. It was built 1905, and the kilns weren't built until a couple years later. And dry kilning had been around for a while, but this was these were pretty big. I mean, this was still a relatively new technology. These walls are about 12 feet high. These walls do not look all that stable. Now on the other side of the creek, see all those piers over there, and some walls. That was the kindling wood factory. And there was a conveyor up in this area that took waste material from the mill over there, and it went through the factory. It was dried, and then it was cut into small pieces and bundled up, and then was sold as kindling wood, usually to urban dwellers. And that is also the subject of a future video. Upper end of the kilns. I would be interesting to know if there was a kiln of this vintage still in operation. I was spent several years in the lumber industry, and I trained I was a lumber inspector, and I've been a sawyer, just about everything, every job in that business. And I was trained as a kiln operator. And it would be interesting to see how these compare to a modern kiln. So, more piers over here, more loading docks. And the sawmill was up that way. We're going to go look at the remains of the boiler house. This hump here is the remains of the boiler house. You can't tell from here. It's just a pile of stone. We'll go around the other side and get a look at it. So this is like I said, the remains of the boiler house. This would have been inside a wooden structure. And one thing when you're nosing around these places, you gotta be careful of there's different pits and holes. I was up actually here in the winter one time, and I stepped into a pit and I didn't see it in the snow and dropped down to my waist. It was a little thrill. So there's the firebox. This was actually the 3-boiler house. If you look on the photos, you'll see there's 3 stacks coming out of here. So the mill, the sawmill itself was over in this direction. and then the dam was up that way. You can see the boiler's extended up over there. So the boiler house is over that way, kilns are down that way. This was the log pond, and you can't see it now, it's pretty overgrown, but the dam kind of runs right up that way. Now the sawmill and the kiln, this is the Salmon Creek Road. The sawmill and the kiln were over that way. And you see in the photos, this bank up here, there was a row of houses all along here. And this was where the track gang used to live. And the track gangs were mostly Italian immigrants, and so they were kind of at the bottom of the social ladder, economic ladder here. So it makes sense. This is like the least desirable part of town, because you had the mill here running basically 24 hours a day. Been very noisy. The mill, train switching and that. So. Yeah, this is where they put the track gangs out here. So there was a whole bunch of cellar holes up on that bank and that. So that's Kellettville Part 1. We'll be back later at a later date. Thanks for watching, and if you liked, please let us know. Subscribe. Any comments? We're glad to hear from you, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.